Welcome to Save Our Sleep. Tizzie and the Save Our Sleep team believe it's every child's right to receive comfort, a parent's right to demonstrate love, and everyone's right to a full night of sleep. This podcast is not a medical or scientific volume, but a collection of tried and tested solutions and tips based on my many years of experience with babies and young children. Its main purpose is to help parents understand and avoid sleep problems in young babies and toddlers.
We'd like to recognise the Wadawurrung people who are the traditional owners of this region, which Tizzie and myself live and are recording today's podcast on. We acknowledge and respect that they have taken care of this land and water and raised children in this nation for over an extraordinary 70,000 years. The Save Our Sleep podcast is dedicated to helping you prevent and solve sleep problems while having some fun along the way. We endeavour to discuss all things family related, starting from pre-conception all the way through to an adult child leaving home and beyond. Some topics may be triggering. If you find this is the case, please reach out to your or your child's health nurse or general practitioner.
Welcome to Save Our Sleep Season 2, Episode 1. So, for those who've been following along, Season 1, I was co-hosted with Zoe. So I am Tizzie Hall, author of The Save Our Sleep. If you're watching on YouTube, this is the cover of the book, The Save Our Sleep, best-selling parenting book in Australia. And this is my come along and have a bit of crack, just listen and chat podcast. And the first season we were co-hosted with Zoe Starr. And today I'm introducing Kylie Szabo.
Hi.
So our co-host in season 2 is going to be Kylie Szabo. Now, Kylie Szabo, you may know her name. Kylie Szabo is a very active mum in the Save Our Sleep support group. And Kylie is better at my job than I am most of the time at helping people with their babies. Kylie's a lot younger than me. And I thought
from you.
I thought Kylie would be great to come along and co-host. So, Kylie, would you want to just explain how you know of Save Our Sleep and your story in as much detail or little detail as you want to?
Well, I think I first learned about Save Our Sleep through playgroup. We had a baby that was sleeping, all day and 7 to 7, and we were like, this is a miracle baby. And then I learned about Save Our Sleep, but I didn't necessarily use you straight away. It wasn't until what I know now of night cycles actually kicking in, and my oldest was waking every 40 minutes to an hour and a half overnight, and we had dummy and we had all sorts of issues, but I didn't know that at the time. And then so I started your book that was given to me by the friend, and then I think I actually bumped into you at a baby expo.
So how many years ago was that?
Oh, well, my oldest is 12. Yeah, it'd be about 12 years now.
Yeah. So
a long time.
And 12. Oh, 12. So your eldest is the same age as my, because I was trying to think, Killian. I was trying to work out what the ages were, because did you get one of our first comforters or not? No, because they weren't out yet. Which comforters did you get?
So Isabel had a different one, but my son got a Dizzy dog.
Yes. That
we still have.
So Isabel got the pink Wiggle Migo blanket.
Yes. Yeah. All of my three have the Wiggle Migo blankets. So we've got the dinosaur and the elephant.
I was going to say, didn't you get the elephants?
For Emma. Emma's got the pink elephants. Emma's got the grey, Isabel's got the pink, and Noah's got the blue elephants. And I even bought, when you got the new stock in, if I ever had more babies, I got a set for them as well. So they're like the little keepsakes because they're just beautiful blankets.
Yeah, which we don't have anymore. We now have the Save Our Sleep blankets.
Exactly, they're stars.
And I even remember where the expo stand was. Nathan was there, like when we met you, which is funny.
Isabel crawled straight to you, and I was like, she likes you. Yeah. And, the rest is sort of history, really.
I think that was one of the expos. Here's a funny expo story. So I don't know if you remember this or if we told you this or if we've told you this since, or maybe this was another. In fact, no, I'm pretty sure this was the expo when I first had Killian. And he had this parent had come over to the expo stand, and they had
I thought it was doll.
No. So they come over and they gave us a baby, and I said, can I use the baby for the demo? You know the way I used to use real babies and do the demos with real babies? Yeah. Taken this baby, wrapped this baby, put this baby in the cot, the baby's gone to sleep. And I've just had Killian like seriously, like Killian must have been like 2 weeks old and he'd just come out of hospital and he'd been prem. I'd had a C-section and I was on some medication. So I wasn't 100% thinking straight, you know. I said to this lady, oh, well, now your baby's asleep. You can just go off and look around the expo and we'll mind the baby for you. And she went, oh, are you serious? Oh, thanks so much. Bye. And she walked off. Do you remember that? Do you remember us talking about that?
I think I do, yeah.
And we were all going, oh my goodness, like, does anyone know what she looked like? Like, who was that mum? And oh, don't tell anyone. And we were all so scared that we were going to give the baby back to the wrong person.
Yeah.
And we ended up having this baby on the stand and we didn't actually know who it belonged to. If anyone knows who the mum was who left the baby with us, let us know. But that was really, really funny.
I remember another time you were telling me how you use the babies and stuff and everybody kept thinking that you were using a doll.
Oh, and then they move.
Yeah. And they're like, what?
Yeah. And then in Packington Street, when we had the hub in Packington Street, a friend of mine called Alana used to come in. She came in at Christmas. We were trying to set the film for Christmas. And oh dear, we just lost the back of our podcast recording studio. I told you, it's a bad sign. Earlier, my necklace broke. At least Meghan Markle's still up there. The podcast studio is not happy with Zoe not being here, Kylie.
No.
It's giving us
Doesn't like me.
a thing. Anyway, right. So as I was saying,
It's all right. No one's
do we
hurt.
think the other side's going to fall down?
Well, we'll just leave it and see what happens.
Okay. So, as I was saying, we had the packing. For anyone who was not watching, who is listening, the shelving unit behind us in the podcast studio doesn't belong to us, belongs to the recording studio, decided to collapse live on air. Our Save Our Sleep sign is now on. Oh, it's not even fully Save Our Sleep anymore. This is a bit of a comedy. So, yes. Oh well.
No, you poor thing.
So, anyhow. So we had the cot set up in the window in the Packington Street store and Alana put her beautiful baby in the cot. And this elderly couple were walking by and this man was going, look how lifelike that baby looks. It even moves. And like we are just breaking our sides laughing because it's a real baby, like thinking it's actually a real baby, but they didn't realise it was a real baby. But yeah, so that was funny. Yeah. Anyway, what's your story? Can you remember what Save Our Sleep? You were talking earlier to Zoe about your maternal health nurse and what the maternal health nurse was telling you to do. Do you want to
how I started on
that?
Yeah, so we had Isabel was waking up every hour and a half overnight and catnapping, 20 minutes, 40 minutes during the day, would only sleep in my arms. And I started feeling my mental health going down the drain. And she had a dummy and everything like that. So my friend who was doing Save Our Sleep and who had the best sleeper that we could possibly imagine said, why don't you just give it a try? And before I came to you, I actually had a maternal child health nurse come who did sleep consultants. And her recommendation was for me to put Isabel down with the dummy, and if she woke up, then I would just leave her to cry.
So you put her down in bed with the dummy?
Yep. And
this was a sleep consultant?
Yeah.
So you paid for a sleep consultant?
Yep.
Now you are now a sleep consultant. You've done the training
now.
And everything, haven't you?
Yes.
To become, because you're into, you are so passionate about helping other mums.
Yeah. And I know how much it affected me mentally. And so...
because we all expect babies to just sleep.
Yeah. And the thing that I didn't like about, and what I ended up really liking about you was the difference that I found was when I spoke to you and things was that you talked about the needs of a baby and how they go to sleep and wake up is how they expect to go back to sleep. Now, when I had this sleep consultant, she was like, okay, we'll put Isabel down with the dummy and when she wakes up, you just let her cry. But what you taught me was if she goes to sleep without the dummy. With the dummy, she'll need the dummy to go back to sleep. Yeah. And so, take the dummy away and then she'll learn to go to sleep without the dummy. But it was also looking at, and I think one of the things that made me reach out was years, this is probably 13 years old, maybe 14 now, on your blog you had a thing about camping and you were talking about how, you sleep with a 15 tog blanket doona, you have your partner, you have the electric blanket, and yet we expect babies to go to sleep
With nothing.
And that's what I was doing. I had, it's the middle of winter and I had a window open. She had, nothing, like just, the jumpsuit on. But yet when I would go in to feed, I would put the heater on because I was cold. So what you said to me made sense. And I was like, okay, about them being cold. So it made me look at all the needs, and that's what really drew me into the, I think there's this big misconception with Save Our Sleep is that we just put babies to bed and let them cry it out. And it's not the case at all. Like, one of your first things is do not teach a baby to self-settle until the needs are met. And for me, the rationale behind the needs and why we need to look at them resonated with me, and it probably does with a lot of listeners, and that's probably why you're so popular.
And when we talk about the needs, it's because Save Our Sleep is a holistic approach.
That's right.
But it's where we look at everything. And one of the things and with this podcast, the beauty of it is we're going to keep going back over old ground where, we started at the beginning. Zoe and I started in episode 1 at the beginning of the book, and we worked through the book. And now we're doing series 2, and we're back at the beginning again. And I think it's really important to be back at the beginning again. We will have new listeners, but also old listeners will get more from listening again, and bits that we didn't touch on or bits that we missed out on. And a couple of the things people ask me about the needs of babies, and a couple of the things which I really want to get across is, you don't just say, right, today, like so many people tell people about the book and they go, oh, have you heard of Save Our Sleep? Oh, it's a book, it's got routines. The routines are great, follow them. And then they get the book, they open the book on the routine and they put the baby on the routine, and then they're like, oh, it didn't work. Oh, the routine didn't work. Oh, it didn't work. It's not just about the routine.
No.
So we talk about getting all the needs met. And as we go on and on, now there is a podcast called The Bedding Guide. It is called a bonus episode. You need to listen to that. It talks very much everything bedding guide. Also, there is the printed out version of the bedding guide, which you can email us and ask for a copy. You can go to the Instagram page and you can click on a link and get a copy, or you can actually get a copy by going to the website, subscribing to the newsletter, and you automatically get a copy. The bedding guide needs to be followed. But so you cannot start the settling approach until you have the bedding.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And the routine really won't work perfectly without the bedding.
No, that's right.
But as well as that, your breast milk changes when you've been on a routine for 4 or 5 days. So once you've been on the routine for 4 or 5 days, your breast milk starts to change. So it's really important that you have your baby on your breasts on the routine before you start the settling, so your baby is getting a nice thick creamy milk when we're talking about a young baby before they're on solids under 16 weeks. And if you're bottle feeding or formula feeding or however you're feeding, it's slightly different. But how people say, how do I follow the routine and the feeding if I'm not doing the settling? Well, what you do is you look at the routine and you look at the feed times on the routine, and you feed your baby at the feed times on the routine for the first 5 days, and you do what you used to do. So if you used to rock your baby to sleep, let's say you breastfed your baby to sleep, then it's not going to work. No. But you could feed your baby at the times on the routine, and then you could rock your baby to sleep, or go for a pram walk, or cuddle your baby to sleep, or whatever you need to do. Or even put your baby down in their cot and pat them to sleep, or rock the cot to sleep, or shake it, like, not shake it, but like, what's the word?
Rock.
Motion it.
Yeah,
rock isn't, you can't really rock a cot, but you can sort of make it.
Yeah, the jigging.
Pretend to be a snoo. Snoo the cot. That's my new expression. Snoo the cot. Those snoos scare me. See the way they shake the babies' heads? They scare me.
Whiplash.
And what is it with babies and snoos that at 18 weeks they stop feeding? Babies who are in snooze at 18 weeks, of course, I do not see the babies who sleep in a snoo perfectly, love it, have no problems. No. But I see so many babies at 18 weeks suddenly refuse the breast, refuse the bottle, and the only connection is the snoo. It's so weird.
I haven't seen
Maybe their brain
I have seen a lot of babies not sleep well in them at past a certain, like the newborn stage. Yeah. But I didn't know that about the feeding.
Yeah, it's very strange. I want to know why. But so you do whatever you need to do to achieve sleep at the sleep time, but you don't leave them to self-settle until you've been on the routine for 5 days and until you've got the bedding, you know? So that is one of the really important building blocks for the sleep. Yeah. So you were saying with your little one, you were told to put the dummy in, and then what happened?
Oh, she just screamed and screamed. Yeah. And so I was sitting there crying, listening to her screaming. And of course, she never settled. And I just felt horrible, that I did it for a week for nothing. Like, I put my child through it for nothing. Like, she didn't sleep. She didn't do better. She didn't do well, you know.
And you were suffering already postnatally. Like,
yeah,
you were
my mental health was really bad. And then you've got the mummy guilt that all goes with it. Like, you know, are you doing the right thing? It was horrible.
And you're so looking forward to this baby. You're pregnant and you're going to have this baby, and you think you're going to have a baby, and you're going to have some sleepless nights, but you don't think you're just going to have no sleep and the baby's going to... Were you saying at one point the baby was crying all day?
Yeah, well, she was awake every 20 to 40 minutes and would only sleep in my arms. So I couldn't even go to the toilet alone. Like, we'd feed, change nappy, and then she'd be back down again, you know, and there was just no time for you and for your mental health. And then you're up all night as well. And, you know, then having to hear her cry, that was just, you know, horrible. And so when I found you and found your routines and the way you explained it, I was like, okay, that resonates with me. And then I saw what I was doing wrong and I put that in. And then it was like a miracle. Like, she changed completely. And, you know, I remember the first day she took about, it was only 10 minutes, whereas all that time.
So did you change the bedding as well on when you met us, or did you?
No, well.
Oh no, so you did Save Our Sleep before you met us.
Yeah, so I had started the routines and things like that. But I did use some bedding, but I didn't know the extent of the Save Our Sleep bedding. So I had cotton blankets and stuff. And, you know, it wasn't perfect, but, you know, it was the best that she'd ever slept. You know, so the first time with some blankets and stuff like that, because I knew we had to use blankets. I didn't know that the sauce ones were, you know, 3 times warmer than a cotton.
Did you call Save Our Sleep sauce?
Yes, sauce.
That's funny. Yeah, that's good.
That those blankets were 3 times warmer, so I wouldn't need as much, and that they were nice and heavy and things like that. So I only had the cotton ones. Yeah. But, you know, 10 minutes of her without a dummy, without being in my arms, first time ever, 10 minutes. The second sleep of the day was 5 minutes, and then come that 7 p.m. sleep at night, it was only 1 minute to settle. And that was after, you know, a week of where we were following the maternal child health, or, you know, the consultant that I got through them, you know, where she was left 50 minutes, like, you know, because I thought I was doing the right thing. And so it's amazing that just using Save Her Sleep and putting her on a routine, and instead of cluster feeding and all the rest of it, you know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, like, amazing.
Good.
So,
Good.
And then, Nora and Emma I followed from birth, so...
And we were talking earlier about birth stories because, like, you know, Kylie and I were similar. We both planned, you know, we thought we were going to have these perfect births. We thought we were going to have water births. I wanted to have a water birth. And then I ended up, you know, having terrible pregnancy traumas and awful time trying to have children. And then by the time I was having Dara, I was living in Ocean Grove, which is an hour and a half from Melbourne. And my obstetrician was in Melbourne, and I thought, I'm going to go up to Melbourne, get a hotel room, put a water birth, like pool in the hotel room, and stay there as long as I can possibly stay there, and then go to the hospital like at the last minute. Well, none of that happened because I had an emergency. Well, we now realise that I had a ruptured bowel, which I didn't know at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I was sepsis, which we thought was toxemia.
Jeez.
Thought it was preeclampsia and toxemia. Of course, now we know it wasn't. Years later, we found out. And I had an emergency season, very complicated, as you know, you remember, or you came and saw me when I had my third. And it didn't go to plan, and you were the same. Birth didn't go to plan, which is really hard.
Yeah, like you have the birth classes and stuff, and they talk about all the things that could go wrong, and that was Isabel's birth pretty much.
Everything went wrong.
Yeah, like I had planned to have a nice water birth and at the hospital, and just, everything that could go.
What did go wrong? So did you go into labour?
Yeah, I went into labour, but we had the meconium, and so we were in there, and then my labour just wasn't progressing. So then they gave me is it Syntocin, I think, and I reacted to that. So I was getting really long contractions but not dilating. And then I got what they called piggyback contractions. So it was like pure, like 8 or 9 minutes of just contraction after contraction. There was no pausing. And it was the back labour as well, because she was turned the wrong way. And then her heartbeat started to not cope. And so they gave me an epidural, and they thought that might relax me and, help me dilate, but No.
Didn't?
Nope. And her heart still was failing. So they said, okay, that's it. We're taking you down to the theatre. And, I reacted when they cut me open. So I was vomiting all over, being on your back.
And we do have to just say to our listeners, like most, births, these are, most births are good.
Yeah.
You do get the odd horror story. Most births are good. But then also, we can't protect everybody, and we have to talk about the fact that some aren't good, and that really affects our mental health.
Yeah, I think taking the taboo out of birth and raising the kids afterwards really needs to happen, because it's still so shunned, and you're not a good enough mum if your baby's not sleeping, or your baby's not eating, or you're not doing this. Everyone's got an opinion on how you have to raise your kids, and it's so hard. And heaven forbid that you do get mental health problems after having babies, because you feel so guilty, like you shouldn't have it, and it should be this lovely and wonderful experience, but sometimes it's not, and that's okay too. But no one ever says that. No one allows that to be your experience.
So you had Isabel, I was going to call her Emma, Isabel. So you had this emergency Caesar then. And then how was it? Did you bond with her straight away?
No. I remember she was born, and I remember looking up at her, and then I'm just like, okay, there's vomit in my ear. But then that's the instant the mum guilt.
Vomit. And all you want to do is get the vomit off you.
Yeah, it was in my ear. So I was like, get it out, get it out. I wasn't sitting there going, oh, look at my baby. I was like, ew, there's vomit. But I didn't have that. I thought in my head, because I'm one of the most maternal people I'll meet. So I see a baby and I'm like, give me.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be this wonderful experience. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then afterwards, I struggled with breastfeeding, and just, my husband at the time likened it to an alien being in our house, and, all our things had taken over, and we have to learn about this little creature, and nothing was the same ever again. And it did come, but it wasn't instant like I thought it would be. So can we just
go forward for a minute to your third C-section, because we're going to I think it's really important how positive it was. And I think we need to celebrate the fact that your third, so you had first C-section was the emergency with Isabel.
Yep.
Very quickly, second C-section.
Noah was a attempted VBAC that ended up in an emergency C-section.
So what happened there?
He was a back labour, and...
So back labour means what? He was in the wrong
posterior.
position. Yes.
Yeah. And had he tried to be born, we probably would have ended up with shoulder dystocia.
Okay. So they decided to do an emergency C-section again?
Yeah, they counted it as emergency.
Did you labour for a certain amount of time first?
About 12 hours.
You see, when you labour and then you have a C-section,
it's so exhausting.
And then when you just go in for a planned C-section, you feel $1 million afterwards. So let's roll forward to number 3. You were one of the very first maternal assisted C-section. So what's that, and how did it come about, and why did you do it? Like, how did it come about? Whose idea was it?
I don't know. I think, I've seen on TV where mums give birth vaginally and they lift the baby up and put them on their chest and stuff. And I don't know, I always wanted that experience. Like, dads get to catch the babies, and I wanted to do that. And Emma, I was doing on my own, and when
you say you were doing Emma on your own, you were a single parent?
I was a single mum, and I decided that was something I wanted to do after the 3 C-sections. So I was initially going...
After 2 C-sections.
After 2
C-sections. Third C-section.
So I was going to go have a VBAC or try again. And that was all planned out. And then the maternal, or the MAC, as we call it, the maternal assisted caesarean, I had spoken to the obstetrician and said... So
were you in a public system or a private system?
I was in a public system, but I got a really supportive obstetrician.
Great, yeah.
And he ended up taking over my care, and he had said that he was willing to do it, but only if I had planned to have an elective. And I was, at the time, very much, I'm going to have a VBAC.
Yeah.
And we got... get up to the point I started having contractions and things, but I wasn't getting into active labour, but I was 5 centimetres dilated, and I was like this for like 2 weeks. And he said, in the end, he said, look, we can give you the VBAC, but you have to stay in hospital and we have to monitor you and things. And I said, well, if I have a C-section, can I have the maternal assisted caesarean. And he said, yeah, all right, I'll go and speak to, everybody in theatre and make sure that they're okay with it. If they're okay with it, you can come back later today and we'll have your baby. And I was like, okay, sure. And it was good. It was so different. Like you said, having the elective was a completely different experience from having to labour and then have it.
So what is this maternal C-section? Because to me, it's something I never did. It's not something that I probably would want to think about my stomach being open and me pulling a baby out.
Yeah, so what they did was they were very, I had to scrub in and things, and then I was on, laying down on the...
so go back a second. You had to scrub in. So you had to pretend you were a doctor. You had to go into a room.
Yep.
And what did you do? Did you stand there next to the doctors or did you get a different room?
Well, I'm not sure if it was a different room, but I remember, doing it at the sink, and then I laid down, and then they put the anaesthetic on my hands again while I was laying down, and I was told I was not allowed to move
anything.
No.
Yes.
So, when you've got scratches and stuff and you're really, really itchy.
And you were by yourself. You're a single mum. So who was your birth partner? Why
I had
wasn't
a friend.
Me? How come I didn't get invited?
But I had a friend who was a midwife. And
I think I was pregnant on bed rest. So what age is Emma?
No, you had just had Kieran when I found out I was pregnant with Emma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, my friend who was a midwife, had helped me out through my pregnancy and things like that. And she was almost like a doula.
So she was with you.
So she was with me. And and she got some really amazing photos. And so I'd be like, oh, my nose is itchy. Can you scratch my nose?
Google Kylie Szabo, maternal
assisted caesarean,
you'll find photos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been in the magazines and papers.
Yeah. And if you want to, we can maybe put some up.
Yes, of course.
With it. I'm happy for that. So what happened was they had the curtains and then they delivered her head and then they took the curtains down and they said, okay, direct your hands down and you can lift the baby up. So they all moved back.
See, I can't imagine that. My babies came out with forceps even from the tummy.
Yeah. So they moved back and then, her head was just popping out and I went in and lifted her out. And
so strange.
Brought her straight to my chest and then I was like, oh, hang on, I haven't even looked at her. So I had, lifted her up.
And did you know she was a girl?
No. Oh, yes, I did. But it's still, I don't know, there was something about this birth that was different to the other two. And whether it was because I didn't have to go through or, I wasn't so exhausted.
Oh, exactly.
But it was just a beautiful moment.
Planned and calm. And
it was really
in control.
Yeah.
You were in control.
That's right.
You were even in control of lifting your baby out of your tummy.
Yeah, and
what a difference.
I remember with the first two, they wrap them all up and then they bring them to your head and you can't really look at them.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to just be able to lift her up and look.
And she was yours. You could do what you wanted with her.
Yeah, and
Did they take her away? Or?
No, she stayed on me and she actually breastfed in theatre. So they were sewing me up and she was having a breastfeed.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was a really, really beautiful experience. And I think if I ever have a fourth, I would love to do something similar.
Are you allowed a fourth C-section?
I am allowed a fourth C-section. Oh, yeah. I would be high risk, but I would be allowed one, considering how well it all sort of went. But
good.
Yeah, so it was just beautiful. It's so different.
You're lucky you still got age on your side. I'm not able to have... Well, I've had too many pregnancies and I won't be bringing a fourth one home from hospital because of my hernias and my age. And I'm probably way past fertility now anyhow.
Don't worry, if it's twins, I'll give you one.
Yeah. I can't believe I never got twins. So we're going to continue from there next week. We are going to take a topic which is suggested from each client. So each week we're going to have a bit of a chat and we're going to have a particular topic. And I feel that if Kylie and I just chat, we will cover a lot of stuff in our talks and be able to help a lot of parents. And we will each week choose a different topic from a listener. So this week's topic is from...
It's from Melissah Jong.
Oh, so how you choose a topic for us to talk about is... You need to be a member of the Save Our Sleep support group. How you become a member of the Save Our Sleep support group is you need to purchase your bedding from the Save Our Sleep website or the Save Our Sleep secondhand page. So we know that you're using the Save Our Sleep bedding. And when you're using the Save Our Sleep bedding, you are then able to join the complimentary support group. And while in the complimentary support group, we help you with your children and you can ask questions. Now, the reason why we keep going on about needing the bedding is we find it really difficult. Kylie, as a mum, helps a lot
Yep.
of mums in there. And I, as Tizzie, help a lot of mums in there. And the reason why I turn it on and off when I'm not available is because I like to read every single post
We
and
do.
just make sure that people are doing okay
Yep.
in there. Kylie also moderates it for me. And bedding's the number one thing. If you're not using our bedding, we're just not 100% sure if that's what the problem is.
Yeah.
So it's just easier if you're using our bedding. So that's why we say, use... it's like, imagine if you took your car to somewhere to get it serviced and you said, it's not working. And they're like, well, when did you last get it serviced? Oh, down the road. You don't know what they've done.
No.
Like, you don't know if that's the problem. So in the support group, you can put a topic forward. So the topic this week is, and if your topic gets picked, you get a $20 gift voucher.
Wonderful.
And so Melissah
Jong. Yeah.
Now, on the subject of Melissah's, I very quickly need to say that I think it was podcast episode 13, or it might have been 12. I think it was 13. And Melissah asked, when I talk in the book about foremilk and hindmilk, and then the way Zoe read the question, I was like, I don't talk about foremilk and hindmilk in the book, because I thought Melissah was saying in the book I talk about expressing or foremilk and giving it to your baby and all this. And I'm thinking, I've heard lots of people talking about how you should express off the foremilk and only feed your baby hindmilk, and you do it at every breastfeed, and I don't agree with it, and I don't think you should do it.
No.
And I thought that's what the question was, and I was like, I don't talk about this in the book. Or I since realised what Melissah was asking was, she was asking the question about. So I need to apologise for saying that it's not in the book, because it is in the book, but just not the way it was asked.
Interpreted,
And that's where it's difficult when you're reading a question.
Yeah.
So Melissah was asking about, in the early routines, I talk about expressing off in the morning at 6:40 a.m. So I say, when you're following my routines from the early days, you need to express so that when you get to a growth spurt, you express less and there's more milk in the boob for the baby.
Yeah.
But I also say that when you're just starting the routines, you've got foremilk and hindmilk. Now, once you've been on a routine for 10 days, 5 to 10 days, you don't have foremilk and hindmilk. You've got all the one milk, all nice, creamy, thick milk. Yep. In the early days, you've got foremilk and hindmilk. And I say, if you're expressing in the early couple of weeks off before you start the 7 o'clock in the morning feed, you're expressing off the foremilk, which isn't that important to the baby.
Yeah.
The hindmilk is more important in those early days.
Yeah.
And then Melissah was saying, but then if you're giving the baby that milk in a bottle at 6 o'clock at night, you're giving them all foremilk. And then you say, Tizzie, that the foremilk causes babies to have reflux. Well, you're contradicting yourself, which is right, because I do. But it's kind of yes and kind of no. So I talk about how, in the feeding book, I talk about how when you're demand feeding and you're feeding your baby every hour and a half or every 2 hours, all they're getting is foremilk, and they're getting they suck foremilk, an hour later, suck foremilk, a few hours later, suck foremilk, and they're getting foremilk all day.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, they're so upset and they're yucky and they've got reflux and it's all this foremilk and it's watery milk and they're not full and they're not satisfied. Then why would you express that off and give it to a baby in a bottle? Well, because after a few days, it's not going to be foremilk and hindmilk. And in the ideal world, you'd express that milk off in the morning and you chuck it in the bin.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't give it to your baby. But some of it will still be colostrum. And it's liquid gold. And who wants to express and then throw the milk in the bin?
I've literally cried over it.
Yeah. So that's where the expression crying off spilt milk. So yes, in the ideal world, you wouldn't give your baby the bottle of all foremilk because that's what you've expressed off. However, after 5 or 6 days following the routine, it won't be foremilk. It'll all be the normal milk. And also, 1 bottle of foremilk at 6 o'clock at night, giving your baby 1 bottle a day is so important. So important. And it's a really good habit to get into. And it's worth giving them the foremilk to get them having the bottle. Plus 1 bottle of foremilk in a 24-hour period where they're actually cluster feeding at that time of night. Yeah. It will be mixed in with the other milk. It won't all be foremilk because it'll have been milk from the boob and then milk in the bottle, all very close together. Yeah. It'll be fine. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. There's the correction on the question. So now let's move on to the next Melissah's question. First, Melissah, you don't get a $20 gift voucher because we're just redoing your question. You're not getting another question. I know people will be going, oh, do I get another gift voucher?
Hey, why not?
Maybe you do. Maybe you do. Maybe we should let you have a second one. 2 Melissahs get gift vouchers. Right.
Okay, so Melissah Jong's question is, why do some babies not settle at 7 p.m. at 8 weeks? And why do babies not settle at 7 p.m. at 8 weeks when they are so sleepy otherwise?
So again, you've got to interpret the question. What is this mum asking? So I'm interpreting the question as this mum's baby must have settled at 7 p.m. because she doesn't say, why do babies not settle at 7 p.m. or why have babies never settled at 7 p.m.? She's saying, at 8 weeks. So I'm thinking, because let's go back a minute. 7 p.m. is the hardest time to settle a newborn baby.
Is.
We talk about that in great detail where it's okay to, I personally would bath them, feed them, put them down in bed and let them have a bit of a cry, right? A bit of a protest for a few minutes. But that 7 p.m. protest can go on for hours.
It can.
So I personally think for mothers' mental health, it's not going to do the baby any harm if you leave them in bed and let them scream. If you're knackered, if you're kabussed, if you just are at breaking point because you've been on your feet all day and you need to get your toddlers to bed and it's 7 p.m. and you're trying to get other children to bed, put the baby down in bed, let them have a bit of a scream and get on with what you need to do.
Just do what you got to do.
It's not going to break your baby. Some cultures believe the baby screaming at 7 p.m. is them releasing a hormone from their body,
heard that.
the female hormone. And some babies, I don't know if you'll know this is so random, actually lactate. They actually have milk come out of their nipples while they're screaming at 7 p.m.
I have seen that, yeah.
Yes. So amazing. So maybe they need to. And years ago, grandmothers used to call it exercising their lungs. Maybe they need to exercise their lungs, but won't do the baby any harm. But some mothers can't handle it.
Yeah.
And if it's your first baby and you can't handle it, or some dads can't handle it, they're like, aren't you going to pick the baby up? Are you going to go pick the baby up? Or the alien in your case? Go and get the alien up. Like, if you cannot handle it, let them have a bit of a yell for a certain amount of time and then go and pick them up and hold them. Like you'll have seen me on the podcast before this one, the little podcast we had during the week where I was holding Zoe's baby, much to her disgust, and rocking it, which she didn't want me doing, and I couldn't help it. She gave out to me in the middle of the podcast going, can you stop rocking my baby? I want him to wake up and want to feed. And I can't help it. I'm just rocking a baby.
That nature, yeah.
So some get the baby up, hold the baby, let dad hold the baby, rock the baby. You're not going to break the baby. So long as you put the baby down in bed at 7 o'clock every night, they will very quickly work out, well, I may as well go to sleep because all mum's going to do is pick me up and get me to go to sleep in her arms anyhow. So they will eventually learn to settle in those first few minutes. And if they don't, in a few weeks, you'll be so over it, you might let them have a bit of a yell. Okay, so you can. Now, why is the question? And this isn't Melissah's question. I've gone back onto no other babies. Because when your baby was in your tummy, that was the time where you stopped rocking the baby. So all day, even if you worked in a computer desk, you might have been talking or typing or you'd be breathing heavy or whatever. All day, if you were walking around, if you were standing, whatever, you would have been rocking your baby to sleep. Then at 7 o'clock at night, you probably came home, sat down, were absolutely knackered towards the end of your pregnancy. And that's when your baby would have woken up and moved around. I think that's why it's the hardest time for them to settle. Okay, so it's okay to help them settle. But roll forward, I think this Melissah must have had a baby who was settling at 7 p.m. Now the baby's 8 weeks old and it's not settling at 7 p.m. And she's saying, like, why? Like, it's really tired, really sleepy. So I'm interpreting from her question that she's probably got a baby who's having a really good pram nap. So she's probably got a baby who's sleeping really well in the morning, really well second sleep, and then she's probably doing the pram nap and the baby's probably sleeping. Maybe she's even making the mistake, I'd love to know the answer if she's doing this, of putting the baby down at the pram nap in the cot.
Yeah.
Because it's really important that it's like babies feel cheated. It's like if you do that third nap in the two sleeps, so you've got the morning sleep, the afternoon sleep, sleeps on more than one sleep cycle. Nap is a smaller 40-minute cat nap. If you do that cat nap in the cot,
it's like at 7 o'clock they say, hold on, I've been in here all day, Mum. I'm not going back in here again. I've had no uptime, right? So maybe she's doing that. Maybe she's doing that 4:30 to 5:15 nap in the cot. That needs to be an out and about nap. Or maybe she is doing an out and about nap and maybe her baby is having such good sleep during the day that it's not tired enough. So I would say try waking your baby up at 5 o'clock instead of 5:15. Is that what you would have said, Kylie?
Yeah, because that was my experience for Emma and Noah, which were the two from birth.
And you see, we've talked about this before. It seems to be to do with the sleep bank. It's like if you come along and you discover Save Our Sleep when your child is 6 or 7 months and they've never slept, they might do 2 days sleeps till 18 months and they follow the book perfectly. All of the people, in fact, I'm writing new routines. You would have seen that.
Yeah,
I'm coming up with new routines. All the people who seem to follow the routine from day one seem to, their baby needs to move up the routines faster. And I used to blame that on second or third children. But now I'm seeing it with first children who've done the routine from day one. It's like they need less because they move up the routine faster, which isn't really less sleep because they're still getting an hour and a half in the morning, an hour and a half in the afternoon.
But it's more restorative.
Yes. But it's like they've got all this sleep in the sleep bank. And then it's like they move up the routines faster. But babies who've never slept so they go to 1 day sleep. We've talked about this. Babies who use the routine from day one seem to go to 1 day sleep sooner than babies who haven't slept for the first 6 months of their life.
Yeah.
So,
and we see it all the time on the support page.
Exactly. So we are going to call that a wrap for episode 1. And we will be back next week with episode 2. And we are going to, once again, we are going to have a bit of a chat about, I really want to make this series about mental health. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about things like mum's guilt and breastfeeding, bottle feeding, formula feeding. And then we're going to have a topic like a reader's question. And I believe you will get lots out of the chat and the topic.
Sounds good.
So I will catch up with you again
next week.
Listeners, viewers, next week. Now, don't forget, please subscribe to our podcast channels and please have a watch on YouTube so that you can see our back shelf fall down. And for those who don't know, you can't really see it now, but I've gone crazy making rainbow blankets and I won't stop. And I'm covered in dye, but I've got it down pat now. I don't have to get my hands dyed now. I've worked out how to do it.
You might have to try the tie-dye ones next.
Oh, no, I'm not going next. So you need to subscribe to the podcast channel.
Yes.
Have a look on YouTube if you fancy it. We've been putting questions on the
support group.
Oh, that's right. We've been putting questions on. We had actually the winners. I was going to pull them out, but we've forgotten. We have questions on the competitions. Yeah. So look out for the competitions. Only 2 people don't seem to enter the competitions, which I find really interesting. So maybe people can't find them. So a couple of mums have been asking me where they are, and then I tell them where they are, and then I think, but you're not entering. So
maybe if you've got any ideas on if our listeners have any ideas on how we can promote that a bit more,
do the competitions a bit better. Let us know, and and go into the reviews and give us 5 stars or 1 star or no stars and write a little bit of a review. Maybe write what Save Our Sleep did for you. It makes us feel good, the reviews.
It does.
It's like our payment. It's like our happy dance. It's like it keeps us going. It makes us think the podcasts are a good thing.
It's paying it forward too, because we've all been there. Like you've paid it forward to the rest of us, but that's what I love. And, coming in the support group is that I pay it forward. Like I had all that support when I had mine so little. So that's why I pay it forward now.
So if people came along to the podcast and wrote a review and said how Save Our Sleep had helped them and even gave a bit of their story, it's paying it forward.
Yeah.
Good point. Well done. Right. We'll see you all again next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Save Our Sleep podcast, brought to you by the International Baby Whisperer Proprietary Limited. You will find more information about the Save Our Sleep philosophy, products, support, and how to watch the mini clips that accompany this podcast at saveoursleep.com. You may find the Save Our Sleep social media accounts by searching Tizzie Hall on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Please subscribe
to my YouTube channel for all my how-to videos and to watch the podcasts. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it and share it with your friends. I would like to thank Kylie Szabo for co-hosting, Fundamental Studios Geelong for their amazing recording studio, Nick Dale at Primer Films for this production, and most of all, you, the listeners. Without you, there would be no reason for this podcast. Please enjoy, stay safe, and Kylie and I will look forward to chatting with you again soon.